You just changed your face without thinking twice about it. A little color on the lips, a little darkness around the eyes, 10 seconds, maybe less. But the real reason you did that is far stranger than any beauty trend you've seen online. It's older than trends, older than mirrors, older maybe than modern humans themselves. It starts over 100,000 years ago in a cave with a shell full of red powder. You probably think of makeup as decoration, something extra, something modern. But the story is much older, much stranger, and far more serious than lipstick shades. Let's go back, far back. In 2008, archaeologists working in Blombos Cave, South Africa, uncovered something unexpected. Not jewelry, not tools, a toolkit. Abalone shells used as mixing containers, ochre ground into powder, charcoal, animal fat, all dating back roughly 100,000 years. This wasn't an accident. This was a recipe. Think about that. A recipe for pigment assembled and stored over 100,000 years before anyone invented writing. So what were they making? Ochre, a natural clay pigment ranging from yellow to deep red to almost purple brown, depending on how it's processed. Ochre shows up at human sites across Africa, Europe, and Asia, going back well over 200,000 years in some contexts. Archaeologist Christopher Henshelwood, who led much of the research at Blombos Cave, has argued that this ochre processing represents one of the earliest examples of complex planned human behavior, not survival, planning, symbolism. Here's a question worth sitting with. Why would early humans, already struggling to find food and avoid predators, spend precious time and energy grinding rocks into colored powder? The honest answer is because it wasn't optional. It mattered. Ochre wasn't just cosmetic in the way you might think of makeup today. Some researchers believe it worked as sun protection since it can act as a barrier against ultraviolet rays. Others point to its use as an insect repellent, and there's strong evidence it carried deep symbolic meaning, marking identity, status, and rites of passage. In other words, the first makeup wasn't about looking pretty, it was about survival, protection, and communication, all rolled into the same red powder. Now picture the moment itself. No mirrors, no glass, someone applying ochre to their own skin or to someone else's, using nothing but touch, memory, and trust. Applying pigment to another person's face requires closeness, requires the other person to sit still and to be vulnerable. Some anthropologists argue this kind of mutual grooming behavior helped strengthen early social bonds, long before language fully developed. You can still feel a trace of that today. Think about how intimate it feels to have someone else apply makeup to your face. There's a reason that act still carries a strange kind of trust even now. Let's push further back in time and further into strangeness. Evidence from sites associated with Neanderthals suggests they, too, were using pigments. At Cueva de los Aviones in Spain, archaeologist João Zilhão and his team uncovered painted seashells containing mixed pigments dating back roughly 50,000 years, used as containers for cosmetic-like substances. Neanderthals were long stereotyped as unsophisticated, but prepared pigment containers suggest something more complex. Personal adornment, possibly ritual. This means the urge to modify your appearance may not be uniquely modern human at all. It may be older than modern humans themselves. It may belong to a species that isn't even yours. Let's jump forward, though still deep into ancient history, to somewhere you might expect makeup to show up. Ancient Egypt. By around 4,000 years ago, Egyptian cosmetics had become remarkably advanced. Kohl, a dark powder made from galena, a lead-based mineral, was applied heavily around the eyes. This wasn't purely aesthetic either. A 2010 study led by chemist Philippa Walter found that compounds in Egyptian kohl could boost the skin's natural defenses against eye infections in a dusty, disease-prone environment. Beauty and biology tangled together again. Egyptian cosmetics weren't limited to the wealthy either, though the finest ingredients certainly were. Archaeological evidence shows cosmetic palettes, small stone tools used for grinding pigment, appearing in graves across different social classes. This tells you something important. Makeup wasn't just vanity reserved for royalty. It was woven into daily life, spiritual belief, and even the afterlife, since cosmetic items were commonly placed in tombs for the deceased to use in the next world. So here's the thread connecting a cave in South Africa, a Neanderthal cove in Spain, a tomb in Egypt, and your bathroom mirror. Humans have never used makeup for just one reason. It was protection, it was medicine, it was identity, it was connection, it was status. Somewhere along the way, all of those layered reasons compressed down into something you now casually call getting ready. Consider your own instinct for a moment. When you put on makeup, even without thinking about it, you're often doing at least one of these ancient things, signaling identity to others, marking a transition like getting ready for an important day, creating a boundary between how you look privately and how you present publicly. None of that is new. It's ancient behavior wearing modern packaging. There's something else worth noticing. Ochre required effort. It had to be mined or dug from riverbanks, then ground for potentially hours using stone tools, then mixed with fat or water to reach the right consistency. This wasn't a 5-minute routine. It took real skill, developed and refined over generations. That means makeup in its earliest form wasn't an impulse. It was knowledge, technique, tradition, something taught, likely from person to person, possibly parent to child, long before anyone wrote anything down. So the next time you glance in a mirror and reach for something to change your face, even briefly, you're participating in one of the oldest continuous human behaviors we have physical evidence for. Older than farming, older than cities, arguably older than complex language itself. You are not decorating a blank canvas. You're continuing something that started in a cave with a shell, some ochre, and someone willing to sit still while another person touched their face with intention. The colors have changed. The tools have changed. The packaging is unrecognizable, but the underlying instinct to mark your skin as a way of saying something about who you are has survived over 100,000 years without interruption. You just changed your face without thinking twice about it. Now you know exactly